want to turn this over to the staff first because they have a few housekeeping things they need to talk about.
All righty. Thank you very much. I did want to go over a couple of logistical items before we dive into this meeting. So I did want to let everybody know that translation services are available, and all participants should join a language channel in order to listen to and communicate with all participants. And we do ask for everyone's patience on this. Technical difficulties, just like the phrase states, technology can be a bit difficult at times. So we do appreciate your patience, and this is a trial run. And I did want to state that this was not requested by a member of the public, so we're trying this out, and we're going to hope that technology cooperates. So once that feature is enabled, an interpretation globe will appear at the bottom of your screen, and then you'll go ahead and select your preferred language. Tonight, the options that will appear on your screen are English, Spanish, Hmong, and Punjabi. And if we could please have our Spanish interpreter please unmute themselves and provide those same instructions.
Buenas noches, bienvenidos. El día de hoy es miércoles 4 de agosto. Estamos en la reunión de la Comisión de Planeamiento. Tenemos interpretación disponible en diferentes idiomas, inglés, español, punjabi y Hmong. Si usted necesita interpretación en español, puede ir a la parte baja de su pantalla donde va a haber un icono de un mundo. Al pulsar este icono va a haber la opción de español. Si usted está en un teléfono celular, puede tocar los 3 puntitos que van a aparecer en la parte baja de su pantalla y escoger lenguaje, interpretación de idioma o language interpretation para poder escoger su idioma preferido. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. And if we could please have our Hmong interpreter please unmute themselves and provide those same instructions for our Hmong speaking attendees.
Yo sẽ trả tao nên sẽ đợi cái tin nên trả lo cũng bên đã lúc trong sĩ thảm mà nó do hai tên này xã có tao nó cho lù là mò hai mà nó chạy là mong thọ nên nhẹ lúc bỏ nửa hai tiệc lơm nhớ cho học cá nên xã có interpretation nhưng mà lý cho nên một đầu khó nên xã mong nên thế liệu nó cho lù là hai mà nó mất chạy là mong cho nên sẽ đợi mà nó被摸lù mấy lù mong theo lù Punjabi mất chạy do hai tên này thì sám không cho lù đợi nó thọ nên nhẹ lúc bỏ một đầu trong đó Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, if we could please have our Punjabi interpreter please unmute themselves.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਜ਼ੂਮ ਲਈ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਫੀਚਰ ਔਨ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਸਪੈਨਿਸ਼ ਹਮਾਂਗ ਅਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੰਪਿਊਟਰ ਤੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਨੀਚੇ ਗਲੋਬ ਦਾ ਸਾਈਨ ਦਿਖੇਗਾ ਜੇਕਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਨੀਚੇ ਸੱਜੇ ਹੱਥ ਤੇ 3 ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਦਿਖਾਈ ਦੇਣਗੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਕਲਿੱਕ ਕਰੋ ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਸਿਲੈਕਟ ਕਰੋ ਜੇਕਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਦੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਉਸ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟਰ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਵਕਤ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਆਡੀਓ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਊਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ ਜੀ
Thank you. And now we're going to go ahead and activate that interpretation feature. So that interpretation globe should have just appeared at the bottom of your screen. So if everyone could please join a language channel, we would greatly appreciate it. Perfect. Alrighty, I did also want to let everybody know that tonight's meeting is being recorded and publicly broadcasted, and that participation in this meeting will be considered consent to be recorded. And finally, for those of you who may be joining us using Zoom for the very first time, during the public comment portion, please go ahead and use the raised hand button if you're joining us using the desktop client or the app. Otherwise, if you are dialing in tonight, you'll go ahead and press *9 on your phone. Again, that's *9 if you're joining us on your phone. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Chair Bray. Thank you.
Thank you. So can we do the roll call now?
Commissioner Fuentes?
Present.
Commissioner Kreiner?
Present.
Commissioner Wagner?
Present.
Commissioner Diaz?
Present.
Commissioner Vang,
Here.
Commissioner Hardy,
Present.
Chair Bray.
Present. Okay, this meeting is being, well, oh, I forgot about the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's conduct the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Hardy?
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so I will read the procedures. This meeting is being conducted in person and is also available electronically and telephonically. I think we've already given the instructions on how to use the Zoom link or the phone, so we'll skip over that part. For each matter considered by the Commission, there will first be a staff presentation, followed by a presentation from the project applicant. Testimony from supporters of the project will then be taken, followed by testimony from those in opposition. The applicant will have the right to a final rebuttal presentation prior to closing the public hearing. In accordance with Section 13 of Article 2 of the Planning Commission Rules and Regulations governing the length of public debate, all public testimony from those in support and in opposition of the project will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Any testimony that references race, religion, ethnicity, economic status, national origin, or any other classification protected under state or federal law in a derogatory manner shall be deemed irrelevant and will not be considered by the Commission in making its land use determinations. If you challenge these land use matters in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised in oral or written testimony or before the close of the hearing. So we'll start today's meeting with the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Chair Bray, there are no amendments to tonight's agenda.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have changes to the agenda? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We do roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Fuentes,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz,
Yes.
Commissioner Vang,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Chair Bray.
Yes. So that passes. I don't believe we have anything on the consent calendar. Are there any reports by commissioners? I have a request by a commissioner. I would like to see us, since we are now back in the chambers, as long as we get to stay back in the chambers, if we could please make a point of honoring our past chair and other commissioners who've left during this period when we haven't been able to do that. So if we could please do that, I'd appreciate it. Okay.
Yes, Chair Bray, I am working on that, and we're probably looking at sometime in September to honor the past planning commissioners for that, but
Okay.
I'll keep the commission informed.
Thank you. Thank you. We don't have any continued matters, so we'll go to new matter 7A, ID 21-23119, consideration of conditional use permit application number P 19-00757. So can we have a report from the staff, please?
Yes. Good evening, Chair Bray, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Israel Trejo with the Planning and Development Department. Are you able to hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Chair Bray, members of the Planning Commission. Israel Trejo, Supervising Planner. This application tonight before you is conditional use permit number P19-00757. The application was filed by Philip Camacho of Centerline Design. Thank you. Just a little bit of technical difficulties. The remote's not working. So the application tonight, again, is CUP number P19-00757. The application is a request for a Type 21 ABC license. The Type 21 allows for the sale of beer, wine, and distilled spirits for off-site consumption. In this case, there's an existing convenience store located at the corner of Herndon and Farrington. If you go to the next slide, please. So this is an overhead aerial photograph of the existing site. So the convenience, the gas station is currently developed, occupied. And so now this request is to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits. Surrounding properties are El Paseo to the south, vacant commercial property to the west, and more commercial property to the east. Next slide. So this slide here is a planned land use designation map. Subject property is outlined in blue. It's planned and zoned for commercial uses, generally surrounded by commercial uses to the west, south, and east. And to the north is planned and zoned for residential property. Next slide. So this site plan here was approved back in 2019. This is to allow for the existing gas station. Has the canopy with the building that has the various products for sale. Next slide. So on May 14th, 2021, the Planning and Development Department recommended, or actually sent out a letter to neighbors within 1,000 feet of the subject property indicating approval of this subject application. So neighbors within 1,000 feet got an approval letter, a letter indicating approval of this application. In response to that notice that went out within the 15 days, there was one appeal letter that was received. Next slide, please. So there was one appeal letter that was received. That appeal letter brought up two issues. One was an issue with semi-trucks parking in the area, which were, I don't believe were related to this project. The second issue is the proximity of the location to the residential neighborhood. So in response to that appeal that was received, staff did further research on the adjacent property, and staff found that property just across the street was actually dedicated for open space. So it's been dedicated to the city of Fresno for open space and has various amenities, which I'll show some pictures shortly. It has benches, picnic table, walking path, and I think some neighbors put up a volleyball net. Next slide, please. And so one of the location restrictions for the sale of off-site alcohol is that a location shall not be located within 1,000 feet of a public park, playground, or recreational area. Next slide. So I'll explain what this exhibit is. So the site is labeled subject property. On the left-hand side of this exhibit, there's a long arrow. That represents 1,000 feet. So within that 1,000 feet, the code prohibits any kind of public park, recreation area, open space. And as shown on this exhibit, generally that area outlined in green is the open space. So generally the south half of that open space is mostly shrubs. It's not really active open space. It's more of passive open space. There is a walking path. You'll see the third arrow on the right from the bottom. It's labeled bench or table area. As you go further north, there's some exercise equipment, and as you go further north, there's turf, which allows for recreation, and that's the location where there is a volleyball net, which allows for open space recreation. Next slide, please. So this is the exhibit that was submitted to the Public Works Department, which allowed for the development of that open space area that was dedicated to the city of Fresno. And basically it just outlines the various amenities within that open space area. There's exercise equipment, there's benches, there's picnic tables. Next slide. So these are some photos. This is the north end of that open space area. You have a turf, and it's kind of hard to see, but there's a volleyball net that I assume one of the neighbors put up. Next slide. So this slide here, there's a walking path within that open space area. You'll see on the picture on the left-hand side, a picnic table and a bench on the right-hand side. Next slide. This is about midway point of that open space area, and this is exercise equipment. Next slide. And this is generally the south half of that open space area. I would say it's more passive open space. I don't see anybody using that for open space purposes. There's mostly shrubs and xeriscape located within that. But as you'll see on that photo on the right-hand side, there is a walking path as well as a bench where someone could sit down and relax. Next slide. Again, the south half of that open space area, mostly passive open space. Next slide. So staff is now recommending denial based on that appeal letter that's been received and the further research that has been done. Staff is recommending denial for two reasons. One is that the application does not meet those location restrictions that I outlined. So it's within 1,000 feet of public open space and or recreation area. Additionally, staff is recommending denial because there are 6 findings that must be made to approve a conditional use permit. Staff cannot make all those findings. Staff can make 3, but can't make all the findings to approve this conditional use permit. Next slide. So again, this is one of the reasons why we can't recommend, why we do not recommend approval. It's located within 1,000 feet of a public park, playground, or recreation area. Next slide. And these are the findings that staff can't make. So there are 6 findings that must be made in order to approve a conditional use permit. Staff cannot make these findings, and these have to do with zoning code requirements. So the use doesn't meet the 1,000-foot buffer. Next slide. So in conclusion, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission uphold the appeal and deny the proposed conditional use permit application requesting the Type 21 ABC license for beer, wine, and distilled spirits. Next slide. That concludes staff's presentation. I can answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have questions for staff?
I have a question. When I'm looking at the, I'm looking at that 1,000-foot graph, that image right now. So regarding the other facilities that actually have a Type 21, where are they located on this graph or this map?
I'm not sure I follow you. So you're talking about the existing locations. There is a Zippy convenience store located at the southeast corner of that would be Riverside Drive and Herndon. Is that what you're referencing? Yes, I am, because I just want to see if we have existing Type 21 licenses, if they fall within that 1,000-foot proximity too. It's close. I would say that it does. I would say that the existing Zippy at the southeast corner of Riverside Drive in Herndon, I would say that it is within the 1,000 feet, but that location is existing, and so they would be non-conforming. Got you. And then, so question, I know that with this Type 21, if they're looking to purchase a Type 21 from somewhere else, what district are they actually taking that from? So from what I understand, I believe it was, it's in the staff report, but I believe it was Council District 5. I may be wrong, but I think it was Council District 5 is where they were going to take one of those, locate those council districts that was saturated. And do we know how many existing Type 21s are located within that district? So within that council district, I don't know how many different census tracts they are. I would imagine that, some are over concentrated and some maybe not. But the way the code reads is that a council district that is over concentrated, not census tract. So as long as one came from that district, we would be fine. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the staff report right now, and it says that it's going to be pulling the Type 21 license from District 7.
That's the only questions I have. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Vang, were you waiting on me?
No. Those are the only questions I did have. Is it possible for us to kind of get that number of existing Type 21 liquor license in that District 7?
Yeah, we can do that. It would take some time.
Okay.
I believe that the Alcoholic Beverage Control, I believe that their website does show, existing ABC licenses within that council district. The issue is I believe we can do it, but the issue is sometimes the census tracts, they cross council districts. So you can have one census tract that goes within, two council districts. But I believe we can get that number. We don't have it now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Are there any other questions for staff? I was curious, so I also was wondering, as Commissioner Vang did, so the Zippy Market is within 1,000 feet of that public amenity. Is the Target that close to? I noticed in the report it said there was a Target nearby. Is it also within 1,000 feet?
I don't know exactly if it is. Just based on looking at this, I would say that it is within 1,000 feet of that the open space area. But again, they're existing. They would be considered non-conforming to this code.
Okay, thank you. Do any other commissioners have questions for staff? Okay, could the applicant make their presentation now?
Chairperson Bray, members of the Planning Commission, I'm Randall Mathias. Reside 497 West Bedford Avenue, Suite 105, Fresno, California. So I represent the Zippy Mart Store Group. We develop, we own, we build, we operate stores, gas stations, convenience stores. Most of those, if not all of those, have Type 20 or Type 21 licenses. So,
excuse me, Mr. Mathias, could
yes.
you speak up just a little bit?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
I really have a loud voice, so I'm trying to be careful here. I want to thank staff. It's been a long process for us. We began this project in 2019. I think the staff report is somewhat a fair picture of what you saw on the screen. If we could I get that last exhibit back up? And then I'll make a few points. And what is my time limit to speak? Is it 3?
No.
It's not. Okay, good. So I want to go ahead and take you through the process of what we do, including in the Riverside Herndon store, because it's an identical process for us. And it's a big investment and commitment to the city of Fresno when we do a project. And we look at everything within the community, the surrounding areas. First thing when we select a site, because part of our business is the sale of alcoholic beverages, we look for schools and parks. So we go to your general plan, the city general plan. We look at the zoning map. We check the park map, so we know where schools and parks are. And like Riverside, our Valero store, we were close to a school, but we met the distancing requirement, and we made a decision to go forward with our project on that basis, among other factors. These stores cost us in excess of $3 million. This particular investment at Van Buren at 6780 West Herndon is approximately $3.5 million investment for us. So with respect to this project, after a review, there's no indication in your general plan or zoning map that this piece in the subdivision is a park. In fact, the zoning is RS5, that's what the zoning overlay states. I checked also, for parks, we actually go through your master plan for parks. Again, nothing indicated, so we proceed with the investment. When we processed in 2019, we worked with staff. It's not just the architecture, the engineering, it's several applications. So we need a CUP just to do a gas station. We run a concurrent application for the ABC. For some reason, this particular entitlement request got held up or lost in the thick of everything, and it came to our attention at the close of 2020 that this hadn't been approved. And so we did some research, and staff indicated, we are still on. We had done all our noticing. The area was under concentrated, so even ABC was willing to issue us a brand new Type 21 license, which has never happened to us before. It's like hitting lottery. Underserved area, no concentration. Yes, we had another Type 21 license at the other corner in a different census tract. So it's green light for us. No one indicated anything about proximity to a park, and we proceed with our investment accordingly. A good decision, a good project for everybody involved. We even constructed part of the trail, the Fresno Trail is in front of our store. Okay, it consists of an expanded concrete walkway with DG and landscaping, and that is a trail. I know because I know what it cost us. And so as we go through the process, it comes to our attention that they are going to have to do some more noticing, and that became apparent in February. So we went ahead with that process as well. Staff reviews everything, and we're approved subject to an appeal. And so the appeal comes up. It's not about whether or not we're close to a park, at least in the appeal letter. It was stated, as Israel stated, further research, it looks like this may be a park. So I want to tell you what I think has happened with this piece of property and how it related to us. Developers will take a PG&E easement. That's really a high-tension, high-voltage power line, and there's about a 100-foot easement, I think, for PG&E, 50 to 100 feet wide. And you could see the towers, and the pictures were fair. It shows you what this area looks like. Half of it is shrub. It's shrub and bark. There are 2 tables. There are 4 benches. There's some adult exercise equipment. You saw the pictures, and there's a grassy area. A developer can receive in a subdivision, when you can't build a home and you have an easement like this, it would make sense to enhance that and maybe provide some amenities for the neighborhood. It's an enhancement for your sales. It's good for the residents. And so you go ahead and do that, and you receive credits towards your park fees. I've done it before, and I think that's fine. But in the map and the conditions in tentative tract map 5595, this is called an outlot. It talks about PG&E easement, outlot. It doesn't say park. It doesn't say park in the general plan. It doesn't say park in the zoning map. To my understanding and knowledge, it doesn't say park today. And we made a commitment. We made a big investment in our project based on that. In terms of being an existing project, we just finished construction of the store, and we just began operating a month ago. I thought we would have our approved license and ABCs ready to issue. And by the way, we also fell under the new Responsible Neighborhood Market Act. And so we were willing to go ahead and cancel and trade an existing license, which is valuable to us. But we want to be, good residents, good business people in the community. We follow your rules. We follow what we had in front of us, and we made good choices at the time, and I think we still made a good choice. And so willing to do all of that, and then comes this appeal and the additional research by the city. And we're going to make a contention, and I hope that you would support this, that this parcel, this remnant parcel underneath the high power lines, that it is not a park. And I have a couple examples for you nearby. So in your master plan for your parks, there were 4 nearby, 4 good parks, okay? Collegian, Stallion, Fig Garden, and Orchid. And these are the amenities that these parks have. Barbecues, baseball, softball fields, children's play area, soccer field, parking lot, picnic tables, restrooms, security lighting, picnic shelter, shade structure, splash park, shaded tot lot, tennis courts. And those are parks, not designated open space, not communicated to people who want to bring commercial projects in the right general plan areas and the right zone areas, not as an open space lot. Another difference between the PG&E land and the easement is I believe that's it's just an expanded sidewalk. Is it a walkway? Yes, it is. It's a walkway. It has bark, but it's not a true trail. I don't think it ties to our trail system. And does the area allow recreation? Sure, it's got an open grass area. It's grassland. Similar to somebody's front yard, it's just larger. The volleyball court, I don't think that was installed by the city. I think that's a neighborhood installation. And when you take a look at this area, these are the things that I see now in retrospect. I see an outlot that's not designated as a park anywhere. It's not in your master plan as a park. It has park-like features, and I've mentioned those. It wasn't constructed by the city. There are no drinking fountains, no bathrooms, no shade elements, no security lighting. There's no enhancement of a true park identity, like the 4 parks I mentioned. Mostly there's no PR designation, which tells me that we can't go within 1,000 feet. And so I'd like you to consider and approve our original request, which was a CUP for an ABC Type 21 license that we submitted back in 2019. And we're here before you now on this appeal. And we would like you to go ahead and support this and deny the appeal. And I'm available now for questions. I thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me speak a little longer.
I have a couple of questions on the location, exceptions to location restrictions. So what % of your sales in that store are going to be alcohol versus other things? And what are those other things?
Okay, good question. Generally, 10 to 20% of our revenue is derived from the sale of alcoholic beverages, and that's a variety. It's a Type 21 license, so you'll run from beer, wine, and distilled spirits. Other things in the store: milk, cheese, meats, farm fresh products, peanuts, chips, cotton candy, slushies, coffee, and I could go on with much more. Ice cream. We have other things, so I said automotive products as well, repairs, repair items. We have other toiletry items. Hats.
So how I feel about this is we would need to have a lot more information to understand whether this is a park or not, because the applicant has made a lot of assertions that make sense, that it's not a park, yet the staff is calling it a park. So we can't decide if it's a park or not. You know, we don't know at this point, and it would take a lot more to know that. I would be open to denying the appeal and approving this if we're able to agree that we can establish the exceptions to the location restrictions. A, we can, because that's the one where the police chief doesn't have a problem with it, and the next paragraph down, it says that. As far as the off-sale of alcoholic beverages, 10%, 20% seems a little bit more, a bit greater, but that's one that I think we could consider an exception. I believe it would act as a public convenience, because as I see that trail coming down there, by the time you get to the end of it, you're probably thirsty, and I don't drink, so I would probably go get an iced tea or a Slurpee or something. So, you know, I could see that that could be an exception. We could say that because you have healthy foods there, that it would meet the definition of a healthy food grocer. So I would be inclined to deny the appeal and okay this, as long as my fellow commissioners agree that these exceptions from the location restrictions that I've outlined are valid. So if anyone else would like to speak? Yes, sir.
The second exception, could you please restate that for me?
B, the proposed off-premise sale of alcoholic beverages is incidental and appurtenant to a larger retail use and provides for a more complete and convenient shopping experience.
Okay. I'd like to add, when I read that last night, again, I'm of the belief it's not a park, but if we're trying to fit within the exceptions to the location restriction, I would add that this is the convenience market and the gas station is part of a larger development. This is a 5-acre proposed commercial development that I've seen the plans for. We work with the landowner on it. I know that there's a hotel site currently coming forward. The applications have been filed with the city of Fresno. There will be additional retail and restaurants within the site. So we are incidental to that. We are a part of a larger project.
Excuse me. Yes. I believe that, again, I may be wrong, and Mr. Garcia could correct me. I believe that as far as it being incidental, your establishment, you know, the alcohol has to be incidental to your establishment. Okay. So if we were to okay this, would you agree to keep your sale of alcohol at less than, some number less than 20% of your sales?
That would be something we could consider.
Okay.
That is, I need to discuss it with my business partner, and we would be able to come back.
Chair Bray, may I ask a question for clarity of the record? Chair, are you proposing to make a motion that your approval be conditioned upon the applicant's floor area sales of alcohol being less than 20%?
That sounds like a good idea.
I just wanted to clarify for the record. Yeah. Is that your proposal? Okay.
Yeah.
Chair Bray, I don't mean to interrupt commission deliberations, but I may have some information which you can consider. So at present, this is something that we need to think about for future applications as well, because it is not uncommon to have pocket parks residentially zoned within residential subdivisions. But I would like to indicate that that is now an ordinance requirement through an amendment to section 12-4.705 of the code. That specific codified requirement was adopted in 2016, which was after this tentative map and residential neighborhood was approved. So at the time that it was approved, that open space area, it is a transmission line easement. It was common practice to develop those with open space amenities, but it was not required to be dedicated as a park per a codified requirement as we would today. The code is otherwise silent with respect to the Responsible Neighborhood Market Act and alcohol sales related to what classifies as a park, whether it's a designated zone site or one dedicated specifically to meet a codified requirement. All that we have is a definition and classification within our code, which relates to both park and recreation facilities of public. And it simply states that parks, playgrounds, recreation facilities, wildlife preserves, and related open spaces, all of which are non-commercial. So we don't have a lot to go on insofar as what is or is not a park versus an open space or recreation facility, but we can indicate that at the time that subdivision was approved, that open space was not required to be dedicated specifically as a park per code. That came later.
Thank you, Will. Okay.
Hi, this is Robert Fuentes. I just had a follow-up question for Will. So would this space today be designated as a park, even though it would not have been back in 2016?
So today, what the requirements of today's code indicate is that for subdivisions over 50 lots, you're required to dedicate basically 0.6 acres of open space per 1,000 residents. That works out to 0.001884 acres per unit. So you would be required to dedicate, for purposes of a pocket park specifically, an area equivalent to that requirement. Again, that is a provision of the code that was adopted subsequent to the approval of this subdivision. So at the time this subdivision was approved, well, how do you use a transmission line easement? You can't put anything under. Use it as open space, and you develop it as allowed by PG&E. And that's what occurred with this subdivision.
I believe we have members of the public here as well. Do any of the other commissioners have questions for the applicant?
No, I have a question in regards to what you mentioned about trying to keep sales down to a certain percentage. My question is going to be, what's the oversight and who's going to hold them accountable? What's the consequences in regards to if that individual actually goes above that threshold?
That may be a question for staff.
Yeah, I apologize. Commissioner Bray will tack it. I don't know that we would have a very efficient way of monitoring that unless it was some type of required reporting from the operator.
But that is, I have heard in previous alcohol license hearings, I have heard other applicants say that they had X amount of space devoted to sale of alcohol, well, beer and wine. So that seems pretty common to me, that people say they have a certain amount of space devoted to that, and apparently we can't stay on top of that, but it seems to be how it always is said when we're deliberating about this.
And then a question for the applicant: is he are they still pursuing to purchase the Type 21 license from 3110 East Belmont Avenue?
So I think that's the license we hold there. We're ready to cancel that license. We anticipated canceling that. That was the license identified in February. We weren't sure that we were subject to the act because we had applied in 2019 when staff informed me. We agreed to go along with it, so we would be in full compliance with the act. I think the difficulty for us has been we were approved, or we wouldn't be here we wouldn't even be in front of you for an appeal. So, and it's not just that, it's the vagueness of the process right now, not being able, I don't know where we would go now. I have to identify subdivisions and find out what they're bringing. So.
Okay. So
thank you.
I think we understand that. So if there's no other questions, I'd like to open this up to the public. So is there anyone here in favor of this development?
Chair Bray, if I may interrupt briefly, I'm so sorry. Would you please offer a reminder to those who may have joined Zoom late on how they may express a desire to comment on Zoom?
Yes, if you are on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function to be called upon. If you're on the phone, you push *9, and then you will be called upon. You will each have 3 minutes, and at that point, you receive a little warning beep. You're doing the warning beep? So, and then you'll be asked to finish up your statement, so, okay? All right, so is anyone here in favor of this project? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone in opposition? I'm sorry, there's one in favor?
Chair
Okay.
Bray, we do have one hand raised in the Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
If you're prepared, I'll call Lisa Flores. Lisa, you should be allowed to talk. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Lisa Flores, and I have 20 years of experience both as an environmental and transportation planner. And I actually wasn't going to speak on this, but after seeing the mapping and seeing the photos, I have to agree with the landowner and developer. First off, excuse my dog barking in the background. She wants to talk. I don't know what about. You can actually request that a percentage of a square footage is only allowed for alcohol sales, thus narrowing the amount of alcohol he sells and generates in actual cash sales. Also, too, whoever put on your schematic that it's a park, what is its name? What it really is an easement for PG&E in the high tension lines. I know, shh, high tension lines, that's all it is. You know, the city is not gonna put a pocket park underneath it because these are high tension lines. Even my dog agrees. She wouldn't even want to see a dog park underneath there because there's no trees. So, you know, I would grant the applicant's request to move forward on this project because once again, it's open space, it's an easement, there's tension lines. Once I wondered when I saw the overview of why is there such a big, you know, cutout of green space. And then when I saw the tension lines, I'm like, that's why. Nothing can be built under it or else there would be homes underneath it. So, you know, let's call it what it is. It's an easement. It's not a public park. You may put up a picnic table, but I bet you on Easter, it's not full up like over at Roding where people are out there camping out the night before to get their space. There is a difference between a park and an easement, and this is an easement. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom or on the phone that would like to speak in favor of the project?
I see no other hands raised, Chair Bray.
Okay. Is there anyone in opposition?
Again, seeing no hands in Zoom, Chair Bray.
Okay. So I will take this back, close the hearing and take this back to the commission. Do any other commissioners have a comment or anything?
Hi, this is Robert Fuentes. I'll just say that as of now, I don't think this falls under one of the exception requirements because I think 20% is not incidental. I think it's pretty central. So I would be open, though, to some type of agreement that sets the limit at significantly below 20%. I don't know how we would enforce that. I've heard that, you know, obviously a certain space within the store can be designated for alcohol sales, and that can in turn reduce the percentage of sales, but that's an indirect way of doing it. If there's a more direct way of limiting the percentage of alcohol sales, I would be even more open to finding this to be fulfilling the exception requirements. But as of now, I'm not sure what that more direct route would be.
Commissioner Fuentes, if I may offer, this is City Attorney Talia Kuluri, if I may offer a procedural option to the commission, which would be to approve the matter with a condition of approval that the floor area dedicated to alcohol sales is below a percentage selected by this commission. And as a
Chair
condition of
Bray,
approval, it would be on the permit.
Chair Bray, if I can chime in again too, just a matter of procedure. If this, in my opinion, if this commission were to determine that that easement is in fact not a park, then I believe this application meets all of the location requirements and an exception finding would not be required to be made.
So we can determine that it is not a park.
I'll defer to our legal counsel, but as a matter of procedure, if we feel that that does not qualify as a park, then there is no need to make an exception finding.
Chair Bray, that is correct.
All righty then. Are there any other commissioners that would like to speak?
Yes, this is Peter Vang. So my input on this is, I feel comfortable if we move the Type 21 license from an area that is oversaturated to this area where there's only, I believe it's one Type 21 license and it's not oversaturated. I'll be much in favor of this. So just moving from a place that is heavily, very concentrated with these Type 21 to a place that's not, I'll definitely be in favor of this.
Okay. Can I ask you, if we make a motion, do we have to say, and we've decided this is not a park? Is that part of our motion?
I would recommend, Chair Bray, that the commission clarify that their findings include a determination that this particular piece of land is not a park.
Okay.
Based on the data in the staff report.
Okay. Are there any other comments by commissioners or a motion?
I'll just add at this point, I'm not ready to make a finding that this is not a park. I think I would be more comfortable trying to find a way to fit under the exception requirements. I'm also in agreement with Commissioner Vang. I'd be much more supportive if there were also a requirement that the permit being purchased were from an currently oversaturated area.
Yeah, it already has been purchased, from what the applicant has told us. So, does anybody want to make a motion? Well, we can't do nothing. So, then I will make a motion that we deny the appeal and approve the alcohol license or the conditional use permit with the understanding that staff will work with the developer to limit the area for alcohol sales to less than 20%.
Chair Bray, if I may clarify your motion for the record, is your motion to impose that as a condition of approval on the CUP?
You know, not necessarily. I would just like them to try to work to something that's maybe an informal thing where they're working to try to limit that. So, do I have a second?
Okay, thank you.
I think for me, it would be a condition of approval. That's what it would be for me.
Anyone else?
And Chair Bray, if I may ask one last clarification for the record, is your motion to also include a finding regarding the status of the land being a park or not a park?
No, I didn't really go there.
I'll make a motion on that.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the
I
aerial
think we
map
need to
for-
say the other motion isn't going anywhere first, correct?
There is a motion on the table and a second, so that would need a vote. However, if I may offer a procedural recommendation, because without the determination as to the status of whether or not the parcel is a park, procedurally an exception would need to be found. So I would recommend the commission make that determination in their findings as part of the vote.
On this.
Yes, so procedural options for the chair would be to amend your motion to include a determination about the status of the land as to whether or not it's a park, That would be one option. A second option would be to withdraw the motion and make a new motion regarding the status of the park first.
Okay.
However, I would recommend it be a finding.
Okay, I'm going to withdraw the motion. So I believe we had a commissioner that was going to make another, excuse me? Haley was going to make another commission.
So I'm looking at an aerial map of the area right now, and it looks like there is a true park off of West Spruce and West Haley in that developed triangle. So my thought is if there is a planned true park within that development space, that I think that this should be considered an output area and not a park.
Would you like to make a motion?
I will make a motion on that.
Commissioner Wagner, can you tell us what your motion is?
I make a motion to view the green space in the area at question as an output and not a park.
Okay, do we have a second on that? I'll second it. We have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Fuentes,
No.
Commissioner Kreiner, Commissioner Kreiner, Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz,
No.
Commissioner Vang,
No.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Chair Bray,
Yes.
There's 3 noes and 3 yes.
Alrighty. Okay, can I ask what we do now?
Well, this is
Chair
the
Bray,
event. I just-
you made a motion on the status of the park. Now you must act on the balance, which is the CUP.
So Chair, the commission can consider a motion on the proposal, which is the environmental assessment and the application. So you could entertain a motion on the recommendation from staff in its entirety, and then the commission can vote on that. Again, I would remind the commission, if it is a vote to approve, the record would need to include findings regarding an appropriate exception, or, again, a determination about the status of the park.
Okay, so it sounds like what we need to do is vote on the staff's recommendation first, correct?
Sorry to interrupt again, but Chair Bray, if we can get a legal determination from council. Talia, does the tied motion on the status of the park result in an affirmative or negative in that regard?
My review of that appears that there was not a vote to, let me clarify, the vote regarding the status of the park was that it is determined to be a park.
Outlaw, yeah. It was in a park.
Not a park.
Not a park.
Okay. Sorry, that was kind of a confusing vote. Okay, not a park.
So again, to clarify then, the motion that was made is that this would not be considered a park by the commission, and any subsequent motion relevant to the approval or denial of the CUP would not be required to include an exception finding.
That's correct. Yes, my apologies.
Thank you.
Applicant wants to talk.
So I believe you wanted to speak again.
I just want to be clear. I want to be clear too. Is the decision that it's not a park? Did I hear that correctly? And if so, staff in their report, they've made your other findings for you. There's no restriction. There's no location restriction or requirement then if it's not a park. And the findings that you need to make, I mean, staff did an excellent job, I think. They gave you alternatives. And it's in the report. I just need to say that. Thank you.
Sorry, this is Robert Fuentes. I thought the motion to declare this space to not be a park failed on a tie vote. So in other words, there's been no determination on whether this is a park or not. It was to declare this not a park. That motion failed. So there's no finding at all on whether it's a park or not.
Maybe council or Will could reiterate what you just said, because we heard that a tie vote was an affirmative vote.
Kim, go ahead.
I'm sorry, for the sake of clarity for the record, could we have the vote read back, please?
Commissioner Fuentes? No. Commissioner Kreiner? Absent. Commissioner Wagner? Yes. Commissioner Diaz? No. Commissioner Vang? No. Commissioner Hardy? Yes. Chair Bray? Yes.
So it was a tie vote.
And a tie vote results in what is termed a technical denial of the proposed motion. So that would mean the motion was denied.
Okay.
Okay, so then the determination is that it is a park.
It's a little bit tricky, but the determination is that the vote to determine that it's not a park was denied. So functionally, the commission could entertain another vote on that matter, or could leave it and move forward with the staff recommendation. And again, if approval were to move forward, because we do not have a firm determination that it's not a park, then the exception would need to be made.
So what you're saying is, if we were to make a motion to, again, I'm a little bit confused, but deny the appeal and approve this as, approve the applicant's request with the thought that this has not been designated a park. I still don't understand what we're supposed to do.
If I may attempt to clarify, or I could defer to staff. Will, if you'd like to chime in first, but I'm happy to clarify if the chair would like.
Sure. So what I'm hearing is the finding that the open space area is not a park failed, and therefore, if it was the commission's intent to deny the appeal and approve the CUP, then you would need to make an exception finding.
Okay.
Relative to the incidental nature of the use.
Okay, and that is the motion that I made originally that I withdrew. So does someone else want to make a motion?
Well, this is Peter Vang. So I just want to say, I don't feel comfortable with stating that it's not a park, just because I don't want to set that precedent for the future, because a park might be, 40 yards, 50 yards, but I don't have an issue if we find we can make an exception.
Okay, so we did not vote that this is not a park, so that's off the table. And I'll just remind you, Commissioner Vang, of the motion I made, that I believed we could make an exception from the location restrictions, because first of all, on number A, it's not located in an area where the chief of police has determined that it would be detrimental to the public safety, and further on in our documents, it says that the police chief doesn't think it would be detrimental, so it meets A. B is a little bit in question because the sale of alcoholic beverages as incidental, and the applicant told us it would be 10 to 20%, and some of the commissioners feel like that makes it not incidental, and the other C and D, we said, or I said that it could be a public convenience. So I think the question is, or back to B, where some commissioners feel that 20% makes it not incidental. Yes, sir?
It does get a little confusing. And I'm sitting here with another store, and I know that we're within this designation, so it's just confusing. You got Target, you have our other Zippy Mart store, and now you're going to ask us to restrict our mode of operation and how we run our business. The store is built. That's the problem. The boxes are in, and to go under 20%, it creates hardship for us. It's a component of three revenue sources: gasoline, the convenience market, and the sale of the beverages, the alcoholic beverages.
We understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just need to figure out what to do. So we need to make a motion, and I think it's clear that you're not going to be able to go under 20%. And
okay.
I believe that we understand that. So we need a motion.
Thank you.
So if, and I'm sympathetic to the applicant's position. In terms of investing such significant sums, and then being told at a very late date that there was a park nearby. However, I think just per the terms of the municipal code, I think we do have to find that an exception can be made, and I don't think that it can if the applicant's not able to go under 20% of sales with respect to alcohol. So if that's the case, I would move to approve the appeal and deny the conditional use permit.
Do we have a second?
What was
I'll
your
second.
motion again?
Uphold the appeal and deny the CUP application.
I'll second it.
Okay,
Commissioner Fuentes? Commissioner
Yeah.
Fuentes?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
No.
Commissioner Diaz?
No.
Commissioner Vang?
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Chair Bray?
No. Okay, I think we're tied again.
Tied.
I'm sorry, I voted incorrectly. I meant to say, I was a little confused by the motion. Apologize. So I am a no vote.
For procedural purposes, can we have that roll call again?
Okay, so what we're voting on, Commissioner Fuentes, can you restate that so we're all clear on what we're voting on?
Yes, it was to uphold the appeal and to deny the conditional use permit application.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fuentes?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner?
No.
Commissioner Diaz?
No.
Commissioner Vang,
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy,
No.
Chair Bray,
No. Okay, so that did not,
2 yes, 4 no.
yeah, so that was 2 yeses and 4 noes, so,
Motion fails.
yeah.
Procedurally, Chair, the next step is you may entertain another motion.
Alrighty.
I would like to set the motion if I can.
Thank you.
Please guide me through this. It says that on the decision, if we decide to grant approval of the proposed project, to approve environmental assessment and deny the appeal to be upheld. Is that correct? Is that correct? So that's my motion.
Do we have a second for that? So you were going to approve the environmental assessment and deny the appeal, okay?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Can we have a vote on that, please?
Commissioner Fuentes,
No.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz,
Yes.
Commissioner Vang,
No.
Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Chair Bray.
Yes.
That's 4 yes, 2 no.
Okay. So that passed. Yeah. So we are approving the environmental assessment and denying the appeal, correct?
That is the motion, or was the motion that was voted on,
And,
yes.
and it passed. So, thank you. And thank you, Israel, for your work on this. And thank you
Thank
for the
you.
commissioners and legal for continuing to explain this to us. So it was a tough one. So we will move on now.
Chair, I'm sorry, I need to leave at 7:30. Just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay. So we're basically moving on to our last new matter, 8B, which is public hearing to consider the adoption of plan amendment application number P 1904-226. If Commissioner Hardy leaves, we'll still have a quorum, correct? Before we vote on this? Okay. Yeah, he's not. Okay. We have a staff presentation, please.
Yes. Good evening, Chair Bray, members of the commission. I'm Sophia Pagalatis, and thank you. We're getting my sound going through the mask. I'm a planning manager with the Planning and Development Department, and it's really nice to be with you this evening. It has been
It's nice to see you, sort of.
Yes.
I can kind of see you.
Yes. It has been a long time. I also note that there are 2 new commissioners that have arrived since I was last before you, Commissioner Wagner and Fuentes. So I'm happy to meet them, and I will begin my presentation, and I will need to work with you on the slides. Is that right? Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Next slide, please. So this evening, we're holding a public hearing to consider a final program environmental impact report.
Can I, just one moment.
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy has to leave, but he's going to call in on Zoom, so he'll still be here, but not here.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, sorry.
Noted.
Chair Bray, I'm sorry to interrupt. If we may note on the record when he does return via Zoom to show that he has returned, that would be wonderful.
Pardon?
When Commissioner Hardy returns to the meeting via Zoom, I'd recommend noting for the record that he has returned via Zoom.
He has returned. Okay. He's got it up.
Make it go higher. Can we make it go a little higher? Let's see. So we're still working on getting my volume adequate for Zoom. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So we will be considering a final environmental impact report a greenhouse gas reduction plan and plan amendment P19-04226 to amend the general plan mobility and transportation element. This is the outline for tonight's presentation, and if it's looking familiar, some of you were here a year ago when we brought this item before you. It has since gone through some additional process steps, so we are going to refresh you on it. And the first thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about EIRs and the California Environmental Quality Act. So most of you are well aware that the California Environmental Quality Act is an integral state law intertwined with land use planning. And it basically requires that all environmental impacts of a project be analyzed, be disclosed both to decision makers and to the public, and then be mitigated to the degree possible or feasible. There are 3 basic types of environmental documents. There are categorical or statutory exemptions for which projects fall lower than the thresholds. There are negative declarations for projects that have potentially significant impacts that can be mitigated to less than significant. And then environmental impact reports are used when impacts, there is at least one impact of a project that is significant and unavoidable and cannot be mitigated to less than significant. So let me advance my slide. There are many different kinds of EIRs, but we wanted to mention these 3. A project EIR is typically used for a project, a discrete subdivision or other type of development. A master EIR is one that the city has used to accompany and analyze its current general plan and the general plan before that. Master EIRs have a 5-year shelf life, so to speak, and right now we are past our 5 years. Master EIRs can still be used, but the information contained in them after 5 years gets stale. So the typical type of EIR that is used for general plans is a program EIR, and that is what we are presenting to you tonight to accompany our general plan statutory update and plan amendment. So here is the actual project. The project really has 3 parts. The first, again, is to amend the the mobility and transportation element of the general plan to include a vehicle miles traveled policy. This vehicle miles traveled is a new transportation criteria in CEQA. It was required by a state law that became effective in 2020, SB 743. And so this amendment establishes in our general plan that vehicle miles traveled will be our new criteria for transportation impacts under CEQA. In addition, the project also includes updating the baseline of our EIR so that whereas our master EIR had a baseline of 2014 when the general plan was adopted, this program EIR now has a baseline of 2019 to sort of reflect accurately what our current land use is in 2019. It also incorporates several new state laws that have come into effect since 2014. Some of those are the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, the Vehicle Miles Traveled, SB 743 that I mentioned, and additional regulations that have come into play that relate to CEQA, such as tribal consultation or wildfire analysis. Finally, as part of all this, the city's greenhouse gas reduction plan has been updated to include new forecasts and targets and state and local measures to reduce GHGs. So here you see again, this is the mobility and transportation element, and this is the actual text amendment to the general plan. that, as I mentioned, establishes vehicle miles traveled for CEQA. And what this means is that instead of level of service or congestion being the threshold that we use under CEQA, vehicle miles traveled actually requires a net reduction of miles traveled for any project. And the new threshold that was approved is a 13% reduction. So incorporating this policy has an environmental benefit to the city. In addition, the greenhouse gas reduction plan was updated. It includes new targets and both state and local measures to reduce greenhouse gases. The state measures include vehicle regulations, energy portfolio, building codes, and refrigerant rules. And the local measures for reductions include trip reduction programs, of course, our new VMT rules, commercial building codes for zero energy that will go into effect in the future, water conservation, and waste diversion. So the program EIR has many components, and I'm just going to go through them briefly. There's the draft EIR itself, the response to comments, because the EIR is released for public comment. When impacts are analyzed, there is a mitigation and monitoring and reporting program that ensures that any mitigation measures that are required are implemented. There is an analysis of alternatives in the EIR. And finally, for the impacts that are significant and unavoidable, is a findings of fact and statement of overriding considerations. So the EIR mainly contains a project description and then a detailed environmental analysis for each of about 17 resource topic areas. And then there are conclusions about the impacts and alternatives are discussed. So I'm going to just briefly go through what the impact analysis found in the EIR. Less than significant impacts for energy, land use and planning, mineral resources, population and housing, and wildfire. And the little asterisk by wildfire is just to indicate that that is a new category under CEQA. These impacts were found to have less than significant impact with mitigation. So with mitigation, these resource areas were found to be less than significant. And then finally, the significant and unavoidable impacts for the continued implementation of the general plan with this amendment to the mobility and transportation element are aesthetics, agriculture and forestry resources, air quality, noise, transportation, utilities, and service systems. If you compare the mitigation measures in this PEIR to our currently existing master EIR, you will find that it has additional mitigation measures in these categories. Now moving to the response to comments. After an EIR is released for a 45-day or sometimes more comment period, comments are solicited and then they are responded to. So in the response to comments document that was before you before in 2020, these are the agencies or entities that submitted comments. And these were the topic areas covered, and responses were prepared and provided to you and to all of the commenters. As part of the final portion of the EIR, the mitigation monitoring and reporting program is also included, as are project alternatives. And for this project, which is the amendment to the mobility and transportation element, the updated greenhouse gas reduction plan, and the continued implementation of the general plan, there was a no project alternative, a net zero energy consumption alternative. There were 2 alternatives. So, since we have been before you last, but prior to presenting this at City Council last year, the city elected to recirculate the draft PEIR to incorporate the brand new guidelines and thresholds that had just been adopted for vehicle miles traveled. Right around that time, the council had adopted those guidelines, and staff felt it prudent to incorporate that into this update. So the EIR was recirculated, and the scope was narrower than the initial EIR. Just a few topic areas were covered in the recirculated draft. The new VMT guidelines, as I mentioned, the EIR baseline, just more analysis was added about updating the EIR from 2014 to 2019, and then the areas of air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, and transportation were also included with additional analysis. In addition, when applying the VMT threshold for the entire city, an additional impact, transportation impact of VMT to significant and unavoidable was included. A greenhouse gas mitigation measure was clarified, but essentially not changed. So in this round, we released the recirculated draft EIR, and we received fewer comments since the scope was narrowed down. We received comments from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Department of Transportation, the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, Fresno Irrigation District, and Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. And so, as I mentioned, these are the areas that were covered in the response to comments. In order to certify an EIR, findings of fact and a statement of overriding considerations needs to be adopted to provide a justification for approving the project and certifying the EIR, even with significant and unavoidable impacts. And I would just highlight that the justifications that are included in the findings state that with this update, the general plan and the EIR become more legally compliant with state law. I've mentioned several. In addition, the vehicle miles traveled policy and the updated greenhouse gas reduction plan include environmental benefits that are valuable to the city. And finally, the continued implementation of the general plan we feel is quite beneficial with all of the policies in the general plan that seek to create healthy and improved communities. So with that, I'm going to just walk you through a little bit of process issues that were undergone with this EIR, and then that will conclude my presentation. Our notice of preparation was issued back in 2019, which announced the preparation of the EIR and asked for input on scope. The notice of availability was issued in March of 2020, and we had actually at first a 45-day comment period, but due to COVID, that was expanded to 61 days due to some regulations from the state about that. And the final PEIR in response to comments was issued well in advance of its timelines. And then the recirculated draft PEIR was released on March 26th of this year and released for 45 days, and the response to comment was prepared accordingly. I also did want to mention that this project was reviewed and approved by all of the city's council district, project review committees, and specific plan committees. And that brings us, whoops, I apparently have not been advancing my slides. I did have one announcement that I wanted to make. The city has received a comment letter with attachments from the Leadership Council of Justice and Accountability yesterday. We are reviewing the letter at this time. If necessary, any additional responses from the city will be prepared in advance of the city council hearing. So with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Do any commissioners have questions for Sophia? Okay. Well then, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Oh, we have to go out to the public.
I was just going to say, it needs to go to the public, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Oh, we do, okay. So we'll go out to the public. First, is there anyone in support of this?
Commissioner Bray, I see one hand up in the Zoom.
Okay. Whomever that is, you can speak if you would also tell us your name.
Lisa Flores, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm actually not, I actually don't want to speak in favor of this. I actually want to speak in rejection of this, actually.
Okay.
So I guess you want to come back to me, or?
Yes, we'll come back to you.
All right, thank you.
Chair Bray, I'm seeing no hands raised in the Zoom in support.
Okay, so then we'll go back to Ms. Flores.
Okay, Lisa, you're now allowed to speak again. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Lisa Flores, and I'm on the District 1 Review Committee. This must have been way before my time in December, because I've never seen this before. That's the first thing, and I'm also a member of the AB 617 Committee. At no point in time in the last 2 years has anybody from the planning department come to us and say, hey, look what we're changing. Look how this is going to affect air quality or might impact air quality in the AB 617 footprint, which is basically everything south of McKinley. To say and sit there and do a presentation to you to say that air quality is not going to be impacted is not only a fallacy, it just shows me how it questions my faith in the competency of the planning department. I have some very, very significant issues with this in regards to the adequacy of the public engagement process. Under this, the city of Fresno has in the past, and most recently 2 weeks ago, has failed to miss marks of reaching out and listening and implementing the will of the public. Most recently, you know, the Club One Move should show us as an example, where the city failed to reach out to members of the community and those specifically in the neighborhoods with issues regarding air quality, increased traffic, and the potential for crime. The community residents have a right to address the public and also to participate in the governmental review process. This EIR, this PEIR fails to fully franchise the community and their rights because it does such a minimum, everything is such a minimum and incidental implementation as far as mitigation. You don't want that. The city of Fresno has always had issues with environmental racism, with redlining, and has a great history of oppressive land use policies when it comes to low income, the homeless, and people of color. This is just another step in that direction. You should hold yourself and the planning process to a higher standard, more community input. I'm not going to say more regulations, but the planning process should not be a process in which toxins are released, air quality gets bad, and it shortens the life of its residents. You know, it basically gives the keys to industry. It's like a fox in the hen house. And you're going to hold, you know, some folks in Fresno hostage in regards if this is actually passed. So, I would ask each one of you commissioners, ask yourself, what is your legacy? Is it going to be positive in the development of Fresno and actually taking and caring how your decisions impact people's lives? Or are you going to have blood on your hands by increasing, death rates among certain communities because air quality and traffic and just all the maladies that we see, specifically in, South Central Fresno?
Excuse me, your 3 minutes are up, so if you could wrap that up real quickly, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, so my last bit of this is, AB 617, we're trying to work with the city, and it would have been nice if the planning department would have came to our committee and talk to us about this, and how are they going to prove that there's not an impact to air quality when we have one of the worst tracks in the entire nation? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition?
Yes, Chair Bray, we have Terry Hirschfield. Terry, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Terry Hirschfield, and I'm the superintendent at Orange Center School District. That's in Fresno. And I'm in opposition to this being approved for a couple of reasons, but primarily because the city of Fresno has again neglected to engage the public in the processes when these types of plans or changes in plans are in the works. I have repeatedly asked the city to reach out to the school district, myself, to let us know when these types of processes are being voted on or are being discussed, and the city continues to neglect to reach out to the school district in regards to these specific types of plans that significantly impact my school district, the kids who attend my school, the folks who work within my school district, and then the nearby communities and the families that attend my school district. We are significantly impacted by the warehouses that are being approved and they're being allowed to be built around the school district, and the neglect of the mitigating factors that need to be put into place for high traffic, for noise pollution, for air pollution. All of these factors are being ignored and neglected. Also, this specific PEIR fails to analyze the impacts on pedestrian and bicycle safety, which is a big problem in neighborhoods that are burdened by truck traffic from new and existing warehouses. It also fails to mitigate health impacts in the neighborhoods surrounded by industrial zoning. This plan relies heavily on air district rules and regulations like the fugitive dust rule to reduce the general plan's air pollution impacts, despite the air district's own guidance that these measures can't be relied upon to sufficiently mitigate impacts. It doesn't look at the current land use changes that are in effect right now. We are working on implementing the new South Central specific plan, and those changes are being worked on currently now. And so to change the plan in the middle of the South Central specific plan being changed, it's a game changer and should not be done until the South Central specific plan is complete. Also, the racial equality impacts, as Lisa also indicated, that these plans and these types of changes in the EIR significantly impact people of color, people who don't speak English, people who live in poverty or low income. And so I just would like to ask the committee to deny this request and to really look at the people in Fresno who you represent and be reminded that this significantly impacts their health, their welfare, their well-being, and it's just not the right thing to do. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition?
Yes, have someone with the identifier CCEJN. Please proceed. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name for the record, please.
Is she able to connect?
She is allowed to speak. Maybe muted on that end, but I'm not seeing that.
Well, perhaps we could come back to her. Is there anyone else in opposition?
Yes, I also have Ivanka Saunders. Ivanka, please proceed. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ivanka Saunders, a policy advocate with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. We, along with Building Healthy Communities and other community-based organizations, have submitted to this committee a letter explaining in great detail why this general plan and program environmental impact report should not be approved as it is written. The public engagement, as you heard, in this process is severely lacking, meaning that those that live in the most impacted areas of the city did not have adequate opportunity to share what those impacts actually are. This PEER, Program Environmental Impact Report, does not truly take into consideration the future impacts of the city's plans to develop more industrial land uses in the areas that are already overburdened communities. If you pass this general plan program report, you will be undermining the process for the South Central specific plan and its environmental impact report process. If you pass this impact report tonight, you are setting a precedent for the whole city's general plan to be founded on incomplete data because not all of the environmental impacts have been analyzed with specific and enforceable mitigation measures. This program EIR fails to address poor land use zoning, nor does it include rezoning industrial parcels to create buffers between sensitive uses and neighborhoods as a mitigation. It also fails to look at the cumulative impacts that the general plan will have on the South Fresno, Southwest Fresno, and Southeast Fresno neighborhoods. This planning commission should not pass this inadequate plan, this inadequate report. The city should take a pause, engage community, and address the concerns raised in the letter that has been presented to you. This current general plan environmental impact report confirms the patterns of racial inequities that we have seen throughout the city's history, and it confirms what structural and environmental racism looks like in 2021. If you pass this plan tonight as it stands, you are confirming that you believe that it is okay that the general plans written to protect the city who live in the north is written to protect the citizens that live in the north of Fresno, while completely disregarding the health and environmental impacts of the communities of color that reside in the south part of Fresno. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition?
Yes, let's come back to CCEJN. Please proceed. You'll have 3 minutes. We're still not hearing audio.
Is there anyone else in opposition?
Yes, we have Kimberly McCoy. Kimberly, please proceed. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Kimberly McCoy, Project Director for Fresno Building Healthy Communities. And I would like to say that I first agree with a lot of comments that have been made by previous speakers. I am asking that the Planning Commission pauses this report and asks the city to do a real community engagement process and to wait to proceed until the South Central Pacific Plan moves forward to ensure alignment. The general plan PEIR has many flaws, such as fails to analyze how the general plan impacts pedestrians and bicycle safety, fails to mitigate health impacts on neighborhoods that are surrounded by industrial zoning. The plan fails to look at land use changes to the general plan, which include rezoning industrial parcels to create buffers between sensitive uses and neighborhoods, which will reduce many impacts. It also fails to acknowledge the general plan proposes to divide and eliminate existing communities by pre-zoning neighborhoods for industrial development. I would suggest that there is a closer look at the anti-displacement plan to avoid displacement of residents to take place. So again, I would ask that the Planning Commission pauses on the approval to send to City Council until the South Central Pacific Plan moves forward to ensure alignment and a real community engagement process takes place. And I would also like to add, as a resident of South Fresno, growing up, I grew up in West Fresno. I was surrounded by industrial facilities, no adequate parks. My mom was a single mother of two, and I was asthmatic. I got put in a hospital, I caught pneumonia, and I was in an oxygen bubble. That was such a hardship on my mom that affects her to this day. So I please ask that there is data that is shown when you're born in Southwest Fresno, you automatically lose 20 years off your life when you take your first breath. I am 47 years old and I have 2 asthma pumps. So I please ask that you pause on this and have a real community engagement and force the city to do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition? I believe there's someone else in opposition. We're just trying to get the
Chair Bray, can you
technology to
still
work.
hear me?
CCEJN, you've been promoted to panelist. Could you please attempt to unmute yourself? Alrighty, it looks like it's not working, so we will go ahead and move to the next attendee that is in opposition. Give me one moment. Alrighty, our attendee that had their hand up, you should be able to unmute yourself at this time.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Panfilo Cerrillo. I hope that you can hear me. I will assume that you can hear me. And yeah, thank you. I see Commissioner Wagner and Commissioner Fuentes. I want to give thank you for this opportunity to speak in opposition of you're moving forward with this. I have been involved for years now with the South Central Committee, and I have been involved with the 30-year plan update, and I was going to so many meetings that, but I think that the pandemic stopped the 30-year plan, and I don't think that the committees ever finished what they were supposed to do. So if this is part of that, I think that there's a lot of work left to be done. I also see a huge need for more community involvement. And I would like to comment on the EIR. As far as the water is concerned, everybody knows that California is in a severe drought. Everybody knows that the farmers are being told that they cannot get water. But yet the city of Fresno continues to put more and more businesses that continue to impact my wells. I recently had 3 residential wells go dry. And at times I drive by the Amazon facility, and you can actually see the fire department out there with their ladder truck just pumping water out of the ground. I know that the city has installed quite a few pumps, and I'm not sure that you have any way of measuring exactly how much water you're pumping out or where the water table is right now in comparison to when all this development was specifically the North Point development was thrown out here at us, and all these wells were added by the city of Fresno. I can see where there's a need for the fire department to practice, but with all these fires they have going on right now, I don't think that they need to just be pumping water out of the ground or out of their fire hydrants and just throwing it out into a parking lot for practice. Lots of places out there where that water could be better used, and we do need to protect our water here. I know that the city of Fresno has put several basins around here. I don't think any of them has seen a drop of water. I know that Fresno Irrigation District also put in a huge basin out there, but they have no water to put in there. So before you move ahead with this, you all need to consider exactly where we are at with the water situation being what it is here in California. And any further development is just going to put a bigger strain. And I think you all know that agriculture is what has sustained California for so many years. So what do we really want to do here? I think what I'm asking you to do is to pause on all of this and reconsider your actions. I know we gave plenty of time to a alcohol permit, and that was denied. So I hope you take that same consideration into what you're doing to not only the city of Fresno, but also to the neighboring county. I'm not sure how much the county has been involved with this, but you do have neighbors. So let's be a good neighbor. Let's talk, and let's come up with a decent plan that we'll be able to all live with. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition?
Chair Bray, are you able to hear me again?
We're able to hear you well.
Okay. I see no other hands raised in the Zoom.
Okay, and there's no one here present. So does staff have anything to tell us about some of these things that have been said?
Thank you, Chair Bray, members of the commission, and members of the public. I would like to respond to some of those comments. I think it will be helpful. Some good points were brought up. The concern from Ms. Flores about not seeing this in her role on District 1. We brought these to the council district committees the first time that we were doing this, so approximately a year ago, since the project has not changed. So that is likely why she did not see this come through the District 1 committee, but it was reviewed by them. As far as the AB 617 community emissions reduction planning process, that plan was analyzed in the EIR, and the proposed plan amendment was considered to be consistent with the community emissions reduction plan. So I did want to mention that that plan was acknowledged and considered. Also, I think it was mentioned that somehow these documents say that there are no air quality impacts to this project, which is the continued implementation of the general plan and the other things we talked about. Actually, there are several mitigation measures in here for air quality, and even so, the finding is significant and unavoidable. So the EIR document does acknowledge that air quality is a concern, and it mitigates it to the point that is possible. It also should be noted that this is a program level EIR, so the mitigation measures set forth are sort of in a menu form, and then when specific projects come in, very specific mitigation measures are applied to the project, just depending on the nature of the project. When you're at the plan level, it's very hard to analyze things at a project level. You don't have that kind of information. So I also wanted to note that there was some concern that approval of this project, this plan amendment, and this EIR would somehow jeopardize the planning work that's going on in the South Central specific plan area. This project does not contemplate any land use changes from the current general plan, and it would simply serve as a base for any additional specific plans. So the specific plan that's being worked on in South Central Fresno can be adopted subsequently, and this will have no negative impact on that at all. Further, that EIR can analyze impacts at a more specific level, and if that plan includes land use changes, those can be adopted. So this plan and project does not preclude any of that work that's being done. Let me just look a little bit more at my notes. Does include, I think, let me, to Mr. Cerrillo's comment about the county involvement, we did notice the county. They have been following this process, so they have been a part of the process. So I'll leave that there, and also wanted to let you know I didn't even introduce, we have our consultant LSA here with us tonight, Kyle Simpson, and Ashley Davis is on the phone, and we also have some city staff, including Brock Buki, who is available if you have any follow-up questions on water supply. This EIR also includes several mitigation measures for water conservation.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for Sophia or the consultant who's here or other staff members? Okay, so can I ask for a motion, please?
I really appreciate all the work that has been put into this. And I think as far as a motion for me, it would be a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Staff recommendation.
Do we have a second on that motion to approve? Okay, I'll second
I
it.
will second.
Okay.
Brad Hardy.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hardy. So we have a motion, a second. Can we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Fuentes?
No.
Commissioner Wagner?
No.
Commissioner Diaz?
Yes.
Commissioner Vang?
No.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes, thank you.
Chair Bray?
Yes.
The tie.
There we go again.
Procedurally speaking, that would be a technical denial of a recommendation to approve to the council, which would mean that it's a technical recommendation to deny. So this would still move forward to council, unless the commission would like to entertain another motion.
Does anyone want to make another motion? It sounds like this will move forward to the council as we have it right now. Okay, so we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, staff, for working so hard on this. So I think that's it for this evening. Do we have a report by the secretary?
Yes, Chair Bray, I just wanted to ask each of the commissioners if they have all their card, your identification card, so they can get into the building during times of the evening. Whoever does not have one, please email me right away so I can check on that status. I know a couple of you do have them, but for those that do not, please let me know so I can make sure you get a card that makes access just a lot easier for you.
Thank you.
And also, I believe you all have your laptops too, is that correct?
No, I didn't take one.
Okay. I guess that was really meant for Commissioners Wagner and Fuentes if they have received their laptops at this point.
I'll be picking mine up this week.
And yes, I have. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
And then next is the unscheduled oral communications. If you're a member of the public and would like to comment, please use the raise hand function on Zoom Or if you're calling in, dial *9, and you would have 3 minutes. Is there anyone calling in? Thank you.
Chair Bray, I have one hand up. Lisa
Okay.
Flores, please proceed.
Yes, I have a question. When this last motion, when it goes in front of City Council, what is the Planning Commission's opinion? That it's just a tie and it's up to the City Council to provide? Because one of the things I did not hear in the discussion was how the specific plans will be greatly weakened if this is approved.
I understood, they've left, but I understood staff to say that it wouldn't have an effect on the specific plans. Am I correct?
That is correct, Chair Bray. Sophia Pagalato stated that certification of this PEIR would not impact subsequent plans.
Excuse me, but through the years, Sophie has stated a lot of things that subsequently I have found to be not necessarily truthful.
We can forward those comments to staff.
And falls into a great area of gray matter.
We'll definitely let staff know about your concern, and hopefully I would like to direct them to...
Staff has known about my concerns for a very long time on various issues that I've been involved with the community, and nothing has been done. So, you know, when I come to these meetings, I would hope and I would expect truthful and honest communication from staff and agents from the city of Fresno, including the commission. And we did not receive that tonight from staff. That's my comment. Thank you very much. You all have a lovely evening. And thank you to the individuals that voted no. I appreciate that.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, it is...
Chair Bray, I have a hand up
Oh,
again.
there's another one? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Panfilo Cerrillo, please proceed.
Yes, thank you to those that voted no. I must say I am extremely disappointed, however. We spent an hour and a half talking about a strip of land that is off of Herndon Avenue and whether or not it's park or not a park. But very little time and very few questions were actually directed towards the staff regarding such an important matter. So again, I want to thank those that did vote not in favor of this, but I really felt that there should have been a lot more dialogue for something so important. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else?
No further hands raised, Chair Bray.
Okay, so it's 8:13 and the meeting is adjourned.